Glad to have you back. We're still talking about the state of the Naira and the expected impact of the CBN's recent forex policy on business and the economy. Bismarck Ruwani, Managing Director, CEO, Financial Derivatives Company, and also an economist, joins me now to analyze this. So good morning to you, Mr. Ruwani. Thank you so much for coming in. So you listened to the conversation with Mr. Ogokorafor. Yeah. Let's take it off from there. Do you think the CBN should put this policy on hold until maybe there's a clear direction from the fiscal authorities?
I think the CBN is actually between a rock and a hard place in the sense that they need to send a signal, but then how will the market react to those signals? The reality is that exchange rate determinants are many, and the true value of the Naira, when you compute it, comes to something like where it is right now. But then the fear premium, the speculative premium on the Naira is what is driving it up beyond. That's why there's a difference between the IFM rate and the interbank rate. The parallel market. And what has happened since the circular came out was that the parallel market has run away because people are afraid. You're sending a signal that there's not enough money in the kitty, which might be true, but that's not what the position is. So you can't use monetary policy tools to correct fiscal policy problems. So in what sequence are you going to have it? The sequence usually is that the fiscal policies take place, then the monetary policy is used to stabilize the market. Now, the reality is this, that our crude prices have come down by 48%. We have devalued our currency by 26%. There's a gap of another 20%. In the meantime, the main issue that Nigeria faces today is the bloated import bill for petrol and kerosene. You must deal with the subsidy issue before you can deal with the currency, because you now know by how much the currency adjustment is required. Adjustments are natural. As we speak, the euro is trading at 1.09. The euro was trading at 1.42 before now, just because of Greece. So currency volatility is natural. But the reality is that this signal that you are saying that people cannot buy foreign exchange for certain things gives the message that maybe there's some shortage, and then increases the speculative demand for the currency. That speculative demand is at what we call the fear premium. It's almost at about 30% right now. So the true value of the currency, to be honest with you, when we did a PPP computation, that is purchasing power parity computation, we came out at about 186, right? Now, then you add some premium, because there are three types of currencies: exotic currencies, convertible currencies, and reserve currencies. So we think that the currency is trading at about fair value, anything between 199 and 210. That should be where the fair value is. But when you go to 225, 230, and all of that, then the fear premium begins to kick in. One way of looking at it is that foreign currency deposits in Nigeria are about 25% of all deposits. If you and I are keeping our money in dollars in Naira in Nigeria and earning 1%, as against earning treasury rates of about 12%, or in fact 10.5%, why are you doing that? You're doing that because you are afraid that the Naira is a weaker currency and is likely to depreciate in value. That fear is what is driving this thing. And when you send out this kind of signals, it might even heighten that fear.
What about the inflationary pressures that that might likely come as a result of this policy?
Well, those products that have been pushed to the other market were actually being priced at the parallel market rate anyway. So I do not think that immediate impact is that it will make those things more expensive. The people that were bringing these goods in were smugglers, all sorts of things. And so, but that, it is not the direct impact. It is the signal impact that is very important. But you see, what are we saying here? The demand for dollars is far in excess of the supply of dollars. Therefore, the natural thing to do is to adjust the price. Once the demand is more than the supply, then you need to adjust the price. You cannot adjust the price politically at this time, right? Therefore, all you have to do is maybe do nothing or wait for the fact that the answer is simple. If you remove subsidies, I think that our import bill will reduce by a minimum of 15 to 20%. If you add a 20% reduction in import bill to the 26% devaluation you have done right now, your currency will be in equilibrium. You may not need to carry out any other adjustments. And even if you are going to carry out some adjustments, it will be minimal. But if you try to put administrative controls or try to adjust the currency ahead of the subsidy issue, then you will have some distortions. And those distortions is what we are facing right now.
And then the distortions will also now impact on investors who go to these markets to buy, the forex to do their business. The manufacturers are already crying. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, brought out a press release over the weekend about how this policy will impact on businesses. And it's not a very pretty picture.
I know, but the reality, I tell you what the problem is. The problem is that right now, international investors that want to come into Nigeria believe that a devaluation is imminent. Therefore, they are delaying their decisions. If I'm going to bring in my dollars and I'm going to get 199, if I wait for another 3-4 weeks and I think I can get 205 or 200, I'll wait. So inflows are being delayed, outflows are being accelerated, and so the pressure on the currency is increasing. And so this signals, to me, there's nothing wrong in what the central bank has done, but it sends a signal that we're having some problems, cash flow problems. And once there's a signal that there are cash flow problems, people continue to buy more. It's like you just hear a rumor that there's going to be a fuel shortage. Immediately, you fill your tank and you carry a jerry can, and that becomes a source of fuel shortage. If you hear there's going to be a dollar shortage, you buy more, you pay the school fees of your child in time, you do everything because you fear that it's going to be, you buy your ticket in advance, everything because you're afraid. And what does that do? It puts pressure on the currency. And so you have to step back and ask yourself, what is the true value of a currency and what's the perceived value? When the perceived value is much less than the true value, then you need to now begin to sequence your actions to send the right signal to the market.
And this is one of such moves that the central bank has made.
Well, it's one of such moves, but if I was, I would delay that until after the subsidy issue has been resolved. Because once the subsidy issue is resolved, the demand for foreign exchange will drop. And you would have enough supply to deal with the gap that you're facing right now.
So, this policy has come at the tail end of the first half of the year.
Yes.
We'll talk about how it's going to affect the second half of the year, but let's get your assessment on how the first half of the year performed as for the economy.
The first half of the year has been difficult. First and foremost, we have growth has dropped. As you can see, Q1 growth is at about 4%. The projection is that it will be 4.7 for the first half. We've had power supply issues. We've had Boko Haram issues. We've had 7 consecutive months of increase in inflation to 9%. And we've had the currency under pressure. The reserves have come down all the way to $29 billion. Having said that, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, in 2-3 weeks, is that in spite of the fact that there's no cabinet, we've seen an improvement in power supply in the last 2 weeks, maybe because the temperatures have dropped. We've seen improvement in things, which means that the same team, you're using the same team as the old government, except for the cabinet, and you're achieving better results, which means that it's both the team and the leadership, the old leadership and the old team that were responsible. Because without making any changes, you're getting better results. So when you now make the changes, you get some really outstanding results. So that is true. The other thing is that many oil-producing countries, let's take Ghana, which is minimal, Angola. Angola, as I just said, is currency down by 6%, and its reserves have actually depleted. Russia, who came down by almost 60%, but now they've pushed up their currency by about 9% in value because they did the proper adjustment and they're able to appreciate it. Venezuela did a proper adjustment and now that currency is appreciating. All the countries that they did significant adjustments, even more than is required, have seen their currencies begin to recover. If you don't take the correct dose of a medicine, you'll find that the relapsing fever is always worse than the original fever. So what Nigeria should learn about this is that it's time to take the correct dose of this and allow the currency to recover. We did that in 2008. We went all the way to 165 and the currency recovered to 145. There was a time when the parallel market was cheaper than the central bank, and so people were going to buy money in the parallel market to sell to the central bank in 2008, 2009 in this country. So it's possible. we would look at the second half of the year, and I will tell you what I think is going to happen.
So what are your expectations for the second half of the year?
Second half of the year?
You know, with a little bit of direction beginning to come from the federal government, and of course with the central banks.
Let me tell you, Nigeria's terms of trade, which is the percentage change in your exports versus percentage change in your imports, was 93, using 2005 as 100 in 2014. It's now down to 63.2. We expect that in 2016, this will go back up to 69, which means that the situation will improve in 2016 in terms of trade. We expect the reserves to pick up towards the second half of the year. We expect that inflation begins to reduce, right, in the second half or early 2016. We expect that the reserves will begin to build up again, right? All of this predicated on two things. One, that the price of oil will not drop sharply anymore to, say, $50 a barrel. Two, that the subsidy will be removed, right? And we expect that leakages and corruption in the system will be reduced sharply. We cannot eliminate that, but it will be reduced because the signals will be clear from the presidential office.
Well, Mr. Iwani, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning and sharing your perspectives with us. Do have a profitable day.
Thank you.
Business Morning continues in just a moment. Please stay with us.